So hello and welcome everybody. Another Chakra Chat today. And today I'm talking to author Kathleen Donnelly, Isreal. Hi, Kathleen. Thanks so much for joining.
Hi, Roseanne. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So the reason why I am fascinated with your story, Kathleen, is because you have written a book called Wisdom on the Camino. Now, not everybody listening to this will even know what the Camino is. So why don't you go ahead and just give a short explanation as to what the Camino is, and then we'll go from there.
Well, it's basically a 500-mile walk across northern Spain. Actually, last year I walked north up from Lisbon. So I walked the French way one time, and up the Portuguese way one time. I wrote my book about the French way walk. Okay, so it's St. James, the apostle of Jesus, actually went to the Iberian Peninsula to tell people about Jesus. And he wasn't very successful. So he went back to Jerusalem and they martyred him. And then somebody brought, like, it says that angels brought him back, but I'm thinking like some people with some angels brought him back to Spain and buried him in Spain. And then in the 9 to the 1200s, around there, the Spanish people were trying to get the Moors out of Spain, and St. James appeared and helped them, and they got the Moors out of Spain. So everybody really liked St. James. And then they found his grave, and and everybody was like, wow, we're taking a pilgrimage to St. James's grave. And then they built a giant cathedral around it, and you can go in the cathedral and see the crypt where St. James is buried. So that's the big deal about it. And so back in the 70s, somebody thought, hey, let's just resurrect this walk again. And so they went and found all the paths that people took to see the St. James's grave. And so they created these walks. And like in Europe, I mean, I'm in the US, in San Diego, California, but in Europe, people go out their front door and walk to Santiago. Not everybody starts in San Juan Pied de Port like I did, but a lot of people, most people do actually.
Yeah.
So
But there's a wonderful kind of feeling about this Camino Way walk that is, it's a spiritual thing, and it's not necessarily, from what I can gather, a religious thing. I like, we can separate religion and spirituality out a tiny bit, I think. But people walk this for lots of reasons. And so what was your reason? Why did you decide to do it? Because it's a big undertaking. It's it takes what, 2-3 weeks to do it, and you have to stay in these hostels and so on. Am I right?
Yeah, I took 66 days. I'm an old lady, actually. And I don't walk fast. And I took Holy Week off. I stayed in a town during Holy Week, and I took every Sunday off because I got there and I wasn't even going to mass on Sunday. And so I was like, I think I need to take Sunday off so I can get to mass, because I walked and then I would get in somewhere and I would be so tired I'd flop down on my bed, and then I'd be like, oh, when's mass? And it was like 2 hours ago or something. So I took Sunday off, and also I got sick a couple of times. But anyway, the reason why I went was because my husband got Parkinson's disease, and I was his caregiver. He found out in 2001 he had Parkinson's disease, and he died in 2018.
Right.
So I was a caregiver for a long time.
That's a long time to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I thought my husband was an athlete, And I thought we'd be riding our bicycles across France in our old age. And so I had to give that up. That was, I mean, you talk about grief. That was, when I found out our life wasn't going to be, our old age wasn't going to be like I thought it would be. That was grief. And so right about 2013, my girlfriend went on the Camino, shared on Facebook about her trip. And even though she had blisters and bloody feet, walked with bloody feet, I realized that she was doing something very special for herself. And so I thought, when Ron's done with his disease, I'm going to do that too. So it was, I went in 2019 and she went in 2013. So I had all that time to think about it.
Yeah.
And so when he died in August of 2018, I had lots of paperwork to do. And so right about January, I was done with the paperwork and I thought, well, if I'm going to go on the Camino, I better get ready.
I better get on with it. Yeah.
So I started searching about how to pack for the Camino, and I just, getting my stuff together. I bought like 4 packs before I found the right one. And so I just returned each of them. And then so
yes, there's a lot of I imagine that there's a big when if you're planning to do it, if you go off and do the Camino Way walk, there's a lot of information about how to do it.
Right.
And I have an old school friend I know who did it, and I saw her very soon after she came back from doing the Camino walk, and she was utterly, it was a very profound experience for her.
Right.
And it was something that I think she was so kind of close to it because she'd only just come back that she couldn't quite describe what it was that it had done for her. But there's something very particular. It's not like any other just going for a long old hike, I suppose, because it has this very let's be honest about it, very religious meaning to it. But it's felt to me like it was very spiritual, and everybody who does it kind of for a reason, for a healing reason. And you must have met a ton of people along the way. Was that your experience of
yes,
people you met?
Well, when you meet other pilgrims and you sit down and eat with them, that's one of the questions you ask. Why did you come? And statistically, only like a third of the people go for religious reasons.
Yeah.
But it is a spiritual journey. Some people are just like buff people. They want to do a 500-mile walk, and some people are just saddened by their life and can't get it together, and they go on somebody says you should go on the Camino, and so they do. I've met lots of people like that. So,
and what was the sort of common experience, do you think, of people who were on the walk? There must have been there's a lot of time to think when you're walking that far. Right. And there's a lot of people you meet, and there's a lot of yourself that you have to come up against and deal with. I'm imagining when you're walking that far. So what were your sort of discoveries or lessons as you walked along the Camino?
I want to say that I basically found out I can take care of myself. One thing I found out that all my life is going to be a Camino. It was sacred time while I was walking, and all my life is going to be sacred time now. It didn't change when I got back. I just continue my spiritual journey here. I had there was a guy I met from England, and he told me that I asked him why he came. He said, that he was in the service and he had a couple of weeks off. He thought he'd go to the Camino. And I'm like, oh, great. And he said, why did you come? And I said, well, my husband died. I cared for him for 17 years. He had Parkinson's disease. And then when he died, I wanted to do something very special. And that's why I came. And he was like so blown over that I had taken care of my husband that long. And then the lady next to him just kind of with her elbow nudged him and said, tell her the rest. And so he said, well, he had married this woman and they had a child. And then he decided that he got married too young, so he left her. And so he was on the Camino because he didn't know what to do now. And so there I was telling him I had cared for my husband for so long. And he just like left his wife because he just, just
wasn't ready for that kind of level of commitment.
Yeah. And I had actually told him that I got married when I was 20 and that I knew that from then on, my life wasn't my life anymore. My life was my life with Ron now. And so it made him feel really sheepish that I, that I said that to him. So I just, that was an opportunity for me to share my wisdom with him. And I told him, if that lady finds somebody to love her and marry her, your child, he's not going to love your child as much as you love your child. And he said, that's very true. And I told him about Ho'oponopono, which is one of the healing techniques that I learned while I was caring for my husband. And so I explained Ho'oponopono to him. Do you know what Ho'oponopono is?
I have heard of it, but I would love to hear more about it. I would love you to tell me about it, actually, since you've used it. Yeah.
So it's a Hawaiian healing technique for the family.
Right.
And you don't need to do it with the other person. You can just do it with yourself and God, but you can do it with the other person. It is a technique you can use between people. But what it does is it loosens your binds with the people that ruin your life. Like we have binds with people that cause
attachments. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it loosens them. And you get to just be free, and maybe you can have a relationship with that person now, and instead of just having a horrible relationship with them. So what it is first you say, I love you. And it's the big I love you. I love God. God loves me. God loves that other person. That the other person loves God. And if you can say it, I love them and they love me. But if you can't say it, you don't have to say it. And then I love you. I'm sorry. It's not I'm sorry I did anything, but I'm sorry the situation exists between us. And then it's please forgive me. It's not forgive me for God that I did something, but please forgive me for what's going on in me that caused me to attract this. There's something like some button in me that person pushed that hurts me so deeply that I just can't be around them, So please forgive me for what's going on in me that caused me to attract this. And then thank you for showing me this so I could heal. So if that other person didn't push my buttons, I couldn't see where my pain is and I couldn't heal from it. So thank you for showing me this so I could heal. And then the big I love you. I love God. God loves me. God loves the other person. Or the person loves God. Maybe by then you can say, I love the other person. So I used it. I learned it when I was taking care of Ron. I had a lot of pain from childhood trauma. And I was in my 60s, right? And I was still hurting from my childhood. And so I spent the evenings while I was caring for Ron on the internet, learning from different enlightened thought leaders about how to heal myself inside. And that was one of the things that I learned. And that's why I wanted to write the book, because I wanted to share the things that I learned to heal myself so other people could learn them. And I was reluctant to be teachy. So I remembered I told people on the Camino all those things. So I wrote my book about walking the Camino and telling people those things. So that's why I did that.
That's so beautiful, Kathleen. That's so beautiful. And that's such a that Hawaiian tradition, and I don't want to butcher the name of it. Tell me the name of it again.
Ho'oponopono. You say ho, H-O, ho, and then O, and then you say ponopono. Ho'oponopono.
And is that what you gave us, that sort of circular, I love you, you love me, God loves them, I forgive myself, I forget, is that encapsulated within that phrase, within those words, within those syllables? Or...
I don't know. I don't know what that means, actually. They didn't tell me that.
Okay.
But
I'm just interested. Obviously, I need to do my own research on this, because it sounds like such an incredibly powerful way of healing. It really does. So what were the other, I mean, one of the main things that I feel like I always explore and want to know about, I'm hungry for knowledge about, is the way that people find to heal themselves. That's why I do this, because I'm so interested in all the different ways that we have within ourselves to do our own healing, and not having to farm it out always to a therapist or a psychiatrist or a doctor, or, and I'm not saying, I think, we all need somebody to hold our hands. We all need to be there. We are community animals, we live in community and we need others. But learning this wisdom, sharing this wisdom is as old as time. It's as old as humans, that we learn from people who have done the work, who can help guide us on our journey. And that's so that is such a beautiful way of healing, to forgive the part of the self that got you into this in the first place. And
we think it's the other person, but what they said landed on some pain we have inside of our heart. And so, I mean, it hurts us so deeply, and we think they're horrible, but they're just saying stuff, and it hurt us. And I've heard so many people say, I just can't be around them. They hurt me. They just know where my buttons are and they push them, but it's not them. The buttons are there, and they're not that we're responsible for having gotten them. I mean, my dad was a alcoholic, rageaholic child molester, for God's sakes,
Yeah, exactly. So to that, speaking to this childhood trauma, and I always say this, I think we all have some level of childhood trauma, whether it be with a small T or a big T. And when we get into that, having a parent who has got some form of addiction or is fully rageful or abusive physically, then that turns into definitely big T trauma. And so you obviously had a lot of that to deal with. And what did you find in your quest for finding release and healing? What did you find that was most beneficial for you?
Well, even with the Ho'oponopono, I realized, and the other thing is that I believe in the vibration we have. Whatever we send out, we attract in. And so I believe that before I was born, I was out in the universe with God, and I was a low vibrational spirit. Okay. And I heard that if you come into the earth and be a human, you can raise your vibration, because humans can do unconditional love. And so that was attractive to me. And even knowing that I was going to try a really crappy life from the get-go, even though I knew that was going to happen because I was going in with a low vibration. I mean, this is what I think. I don't know if God told me or if I just made this up, but anyway, whatever. And I believe it. And so I came in, and even from being in my mother's womb, I attracted bad things because my dad accused my mother of getting me with somebody else. And he was crazy. She loved him so much. He was a crazy person. But anyway, so like my whole life I attracted horrible stuff. People were mean to me my whole life, and I didn't get it. I didn't get that I was attracting it in.
Yes.
I didn't get that. And so when I did my healing, from the Ho'oponopono, I realized that I had attracted it all in. And so then, I mean, I don't even feel like I need to forgive anybody anymore, because I attracted it in. If I hadn't been with that low vibration, I wouldn't have attracted it in. And the other thing is, you can't even do unconditional love unless you have adversity. It's easy to love the people that love us. So there I had all this big laundry list of horrible, mean people in my life. I mean, I used to think I just can't die because I can't go to heaven. And all those people that were mean to me are there. And I just didn't know I was like, if anybody comes back to get me, I'm not going with them. That's for sure.
Okay. Oh my God. But what an incredibly powerful philosophy to take upon yourself, and to, it's that's one of the most self-accepting, self-loving things that I think I've ever heard. Because, I'm with you. I agree that, our spirit is out there somewhere, and it lands within us when we come into human form. And we're born and we have this extraordinary lifetime. We are a spirit having a human experience. And, those of us, some people just cruise through it, just sort of fairly oblivious, going, well, that was just a life. And some of us go through our lives going, okay, so I'm a spirit in this, and this spirit of mine, it's not going to die. My physical body will die eventually, but my spirit won't, because it's energy, and energy never dies. And, quantum physics, all of that, we are energy. So I want to raise that vibration. So the next time, if I get another chance to come back and have a human experience, it's going to be something that's going to start a little bit higher. But also it helps that, we want the best experience that we possibly can in this lifetime. And so raising your vibrations and raising your resonance, and raising your, your positivity, I suppose, is definitely one of the most incredible things that you can do with your life.
Right.
And because that unconditional love is exponential, and it affects so many people, that wave that you send out from yourself affects other people. Somebody else is going to smile because they had an interaction with you, and then they're going to be nicer to the next person, and the next person, and so on and so on.
Right.
It's an incredibly powerful thing to come across. And what a beautiful
so I honor myself, like, instead of like, oh, I was such a idiot, bringing all that in. I honor myself as a valiant spirit that came in here anyway, even knowing I would attract all that stuff. It just had to happen. So yeah, I'm good. I'm good now. I don't really feel like I need to forgive anybody. And I'm just, of course, things come in, and I think about them, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to bring my vibration down. I'm just going to not think about that anymore, stuff like that.
But also, when things do crop up in your life, you're like, okay, I have the tools to deal with this. I know, I've done it before, I can do it again, kind of thing. But you're already set at that vibrational level that will, on the whole, only attract the positive things. And even when, it's also, it's kind of mindset to a certain degree, because something could come along, and for you, because you're at your vibrational level that you're at, you'll just go, oh, okay, That's what it is. It's fine. Whereas somebody else, it could be really triggering for them, and they're like, "Oh my God!" It's like so the same things hit people in different ways. In the same way that you were saying about, the effect that other people's actions and words can have on you as triggers. It's the same with when anything happens in your life, and so. I'm fascinated with the philosophies that whilst you've studied and whilst you were walking, and did you learn what I know you must have, you did, it sounds to me like you did a lot of work on yourself before you walked the Camino Way. But was there, what new things came up from you other than your ability to share your wisdom with your fellow pilgrims? Was there anything?
Well, it was in the application of my, the teachings that I had learned. Like I met a guy from Ireland, and the reason why he was there is because his parents had gone to, they lived out in a town, and his parents had gone to Dublin for his dad's job, and they left the boys home to finish raising themselves. And his older brother left when it was when he was old enough to leave. And he had stayed with his younger brother till his younger brother was out of high school. But now it was he needed to leave. And his brother was angry with him for leaving him. And so I was just like, okay, so I started doing possibility thinking. That's another thing that I learned, possibility thinking. So I said, well, let's think about this. Think about your family all happy. And he's like, okay, when I think of that, my parents are home and we're all there together. And then I said, okay, so take your parents away. Are you guys all happy? And he said, yeah, we're happy, the three of us, and then he said, okay, take away your older brother. Are you still happy? And he said, yeah, I'm still happy. And then I said, okay, take you away. And he said, that's not happy. I feel so sorry for my younger brother. He'll be alone. And I said, well, think about what could make this happy. What could possibly happen that this could be happy? And he said, well, I could just take my brother to my parents. He's their responsibility. And then everybody will be happy. And I said, yeah, that's it. So he didn't know what to do. He probably could have thought that up himself. I think he did actually say, I was thinking about that. And so that, in the application, it was really great too.
So what is possibility thinking? Talk me through that one. That sounds like an interesting modality.
Yeah. So and really one of the applications is worrying. A lot of people worry about things.
Yeah. It's a big old pastime, worrying, isn't it?
The thing is that if you're worried about something, you're making up a story, a sad story, and imposing it on a situation. It's not even true, Yeah. You just made it up and then you believed it.
Yep.
So what I recommend is that you make up a good story and think it. We're actually cursing.
It sounds so simple. It sounds so obvious to do, but we just don't do it, do we?
But there's endless possibilities, as a matter of fact, always endless possibilities. And so, just make up a good story and think it. And if we think a bad story about somebody, we're sending our bad vibration over to them and clouding their experience. And I'm sure that the people who worry about other people don't want to curse their loved one. They don't want to curse them, but that's what they're doing. They're sending a bad vibration over to that person. No, just stop it. Think of a good outcome for them and then think it.
And you could even pray for it if you pray, you know what I mean? You can send all kinds of good vibrations with.
Prayer and meditation sit very side by side with holding hands, essentially. Especially when you're doing a sort of a guided meditation or a meditation with a purpose. But yeah, I totally I get you. I think it's a fantastically obvious, but very sort of obvious thing to do that people don't do, but it's also very purposeful. And I think when you make that it's a mindful thing to do, to go, actually notice, what is the story that I'm telling myself about X situation, and actually, can I change that story? And your mind's going to fight it, because the mind likes to have its own way and go, no, we've already thought up this story and it's fine, we don't want to change our minds and think, but actually we have the capability of going, no, that's a horrible story, we do not like that. It's like changing the channels on the television. If you're watching something that really you're not enjoying, you don't stay watching it just because you've started watching it. You change channels and find something that does make you feel happy, or satisfy whatever it is that you want to watch. And I think it's the same with our mental stories. Just making that decision to flick the channel is a big one.
When we realize what we're doing with our vibration, we don't realize it. Don't realize it. And when we do realize it, then we can be like, I need to change this. I'm not going to send bad vibes to my loved one. Some people say, well, of course I'm worried about you, I love you, but that's sorry, bullshit. Sorry, I'm an American.
Absolutely, no, you go for it, Kathleen. It's perfect, because that's an absolutely correct use of the word bullshit, because it has impact when you say it like that, because it is you're absolutely telling the truth there. I love that. I think it's interesting. I actually, whilst you were just speaking there, I was just remembering that my son is going off on a big long walk. He's going walking for a whole week on the South Downs this coming week, and I'm thinking, I hope that he just doesn't talk rubbish with his mates for an entire week. I hope he actually has some time to think. I might send him this recording so that he can listen to it. But I think anybody who is, and I think me personally, I always I love listening to podcasts when I'm walking, and that's when I mostly listen to podcasts is when I'm walking my dog and so on. But there is something very meditative about putting one foot in front of the other, and thinking and spending time with yourself.
Yeah, walking is a meditation. I know my sister-in-law, when I was preparing for the Camino, my sister-in-law told me, oh, well, Kathleen, you're going to need to walk up mountains. So she went and found all the mountains in San Diego when we walked up them. And I asked her to go with me, and she didn't go with me. And when I got back, she said, Kathleen, I wanted to go with you, but I didn't go because I wanted you to have that time for yourself to meditate, have a meditative walk. And if I had gone with you, we'd have been talking the whole time. So that's why I didn't go.
Yeah. So, gosh, what an amazingly gorgeous friend to help you train and then let you go and do it on your own. Yeah. I mean, what words of wisdom would you have if somebody is going, actually, I really would like to just check out and go and do a long walk with a purpose? Because from what I understand, there's lots of sort of waypoints where you get a sort of stamp and things. Yeah. So there's it's a very well-trodden path. It's a very well-trodden path, and then there's the various hostels. So you will stay in kind of hostels, so you just show up and there's always a space for you. And
right, thank you, God. Right.
Okay,
there's a place for you. But they're called albergues. And so when I went to a lecture at my library, this woman had done the Camino, and I talked to her afterwards, and she recommended that I make reservations for the first 3 albergues. So I got a book, and in the book, it has all the cities, how far apart they are, what the altitude is, you know, that you're going to be walking up and down, so you can see how far you think you could walk that day. And then you can decide, okay, well, that's just 12K away, but I'm not going to be walking 35K, so I need to stay there, you know. And so anyway, that's what I did. I made the first 3 nights reservations. The book had their phone number in them, and they're, you know, so I called them to make a reservation. And then when I got there, the first night I stayed at the Bellari, which, I mean, I recommend the Bellari. It was wonderful. And in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. And then there was snow on the Pyrenees, so I couldn't go to those next 2 places. And so I had to walk around the Pyrenees instead of over that, because they didn't want to have to rescue anybody.
No.
And
so
anyway, that didn't work. But when I walked around, I ended up in Valcarlos. And just so happened, all the people that left that day had to stay at Valcarlos because they couldn't go over the Pyrenees. And so every night I would call the next day to get my reservation. I hear that it's really busy on the Camino right now after COVID. Everybody's like wanted to go for 3 years now, and now they're going, you know. So it, you know, maybe you need more reservations than that. But anyway, that's what I did. I called up and I, you know, I said, necesito una cama para esta noche, which is I need a bed for tonight. And they would say yes or no, and you know, and then I could call somebody else if it was no and stuff. Some of the albergues don't take reservations, so you just have to walk and hope they have. I always got a reservation, except for this one night. The place I was going to go to, it said it was going to be open, and they had like 60 beds. So I went there, and it wasn't open. They said they would be open in April after Easter, and Easter had already happened and they weren't open. And so I walked to the next town and they weren't open, and the next town, and I ended up walking 28K that day, which is a lot for an old lady, you know. And some people walk 35K a day. They're just young and buff, and it's not a problem for them.
People want to do it for the challenge of the walk rather than the spirituality of it. But I imagine that the majority of people who do the Camino Way are doing it for spiritual reasons.
Actually, only like 30%.
Oh, did you think so? Really?
That's what they say. When you get to Santiago, they ask, you know, you go to get your Compostela certificate, and they ask you if it was a spiritual journey, and only 1/3 of the people do it for a spiritual journey. But I mean,
of those 30, of those you know, the remaining percentage, 70% of people who do it and haven't done it for a spiritual reason, they've done it because they love walking, and it's one of the most amazing walks in the world to do.
Right.
That they haven't, I don't believe that they haven't had some kind of spirituality, some kind of awakening or realization or something along the way. I don't know. We're not there at the end asking everybody, so we'll never know. But I can't help but think that that's the case. Yeah,
it's very special. Everybody that walks it says it's very special.
No, this is what I gather. So no, I'm fascinated, and I think your book sounds really beautiful. The fact that you've woven in all of these incredible learnings that you have taken on for your own healing of your own inner child and healing your grief. You know, it sounds to me like you have done a very solid job of work on, you know, you've done the work.
I did the work. I'm not in pain from that anymore. I used to be, in my heart hurt so much, you know, for so many years. And I just couldn't, I mean, my story, I was telling my story all the time of my sadness. And I don't do that anymore. I don't know. It doesn't come up, you know.
Yeah.
So thank you, God.
Yes, indeed. And thank you to yourself for taking yourself on that journey. And
I felt like, I felt like God was sending me teachers. I used to listen to this guy, Darius Barazunda, and he would have healers on his show. And I would listen to them, and I would do it. Maybe they would give you work to do. They didn't make you pay for it. They would just give you work to do, and I would do their work. And then every once in a while, somebody had a package that you could buy for like $69 or something like that.
yeah.
And I would buy their package and I would do the work, like, sleep tapes, all kinds of stuff that I was doing. And then after a while, it seemed like it wasn't interesting anymore. And God would send me another one, and I would do their work. And just over the years.
Out of all of these various things that you did you ever work with the chakras, just out of interest?
Well, I teach transformational breathing, and we do toning for the chakras.
Oh, do you? Okay.
And we do the Kundalini dance, which wakes up the chakras. So before we do the breathing, we do the Kundalini dance, and like you raise your hands up and breathe in, you raise your hands down and breathe out, and then you dance around with your feet, and that's how we do it.
Yeah.
And then that activates the breathing, and then I lay down and I watch the person's breathing and see where their restricted breathing patterns are, and then I can help them breathe in those areas, because like if somebody has a broken heart, they're not breathing in their chest area, and then if they had their will shut down, they're not breathing in their belly area. And so I can see that, and I can help them. I have techniques to help them breathe in those areas, and so they can get, like, we hold our sadness in our body on a cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I release that, maybe I see somebody's not breathing in their chest, and I'll say, it's safe to love. And I push right here on their chest, it's safe to love. And then I go, as a matter of fact, it's not safe to not love. So it's safe to love. And then, just different, I have a body map that I work with. Nice. But one of the things that I learned was the toning for the chakras. So the tone for, well, I'll just start at the top. The tone for the head is the E sound. So the high E is the top of the head. The low E is like down to the throat. So you go, E. So I'm toning with a high E sound for if you have a headache, like if your headache is like here, you can just go E and just kind of go up and down with the E to see where it resonates, where your headache is. So then you can move the stuck energy in that area. So it goes away. and then the chest area is the ah. So this is the high ah, and down at your waist is the low ah.
Yeah.
And so I had a lady, she couldn't breathe because she felt restricted in her throat. And I told her to tone with the high ah, and it just released her throat. She could breathe after that. It was amazing.
It is extraordinary. Opening the throat chakra is it's because we have a vocal box and we can make noise. Healing that energy is so accessible. It's very satisfying.
So the throat could be the low E or the high ah, either one. They kind of meet each other right there at the throat.
Yeah.
So it depends on, you could try both of them. And then anything below the belt is the O sound. So so the high O is oh, and then the low O is oh. So, and really I was doing the breathing with my daughter. She was giving birth. And so we just we just did the really low O for the root chakra.
Yeah.
Oh, I just kept doing that with her. And she had a really, I mean, the baby was looking up instead of down or something when it was coming out. So she had a really long labor. And every time the midwife came in and checked the breathing of the baby, you know, the heartbeat of the baby's heartbeat was strong because we were doing the breathing that whole time.
Yeah.
And toning for the chakra, the root chakra. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. I feel like I've learned so much from you, Kathleen. I love this. And I feel like I would love to I'm going to get your book because I'm fascinated by the Camino Way. I always have been. I wonder whether one day we'll maybe do it or part of it, or, you know, because walking is my exercise apart from yoga. Yoga and walking is what I love. So tell people, so I know we can find your book on Amazon, I'm sure.
Just go Wisdom on the Camino. Here's the book, Wisdom on the Camino, a spiritual journey sharing forgiveness and possibilities to inspire the rest of your life. Yeah. And all my teachings, you know, are in there, and I shared them with the people along the way.
Fantastic. It's a very clever way to have constructed a self-help book.
And I have to tell you that the people who read my book, right across from the table of contents, it says, read this first. And it leads you through, you have to double opt in. I'm very sorry. It's just the way the world is now. And you have to double opt in, and you can see the pictures. People told me I should put my pictures in there. And I'm like, yeah, and it's going to be $50 for my book if I do that, because black and white pictures aren't it. So, so anyway, I arranged them on a website in galleries and portfolios, and just do what it says in the book. And then you can, I have them arranged per chapter, so you can look at the chapter 1 pictures while you're reading chapter 1.
Fantastic. And that's absolutely brilliant, Kathleen. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And of course, I will put a link to your book in the show notes. And I'm so grateful for your wisdom and for your time. I've absolutely adored speaking to you. It's been really inspirational. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.